When my son called me that Friday night, his voice had the kind of energy I hadn't heard since he was a teenager begging for the car keys. "Dad, let's go out. Just the two of us. I'll take you somewhere fun." I smiled, even though the phone was pressed against my ear in an empty house. We hadn't been close lately. He was 30, drifting between jobs, always looking for the next quick score. Still, a night out with him? That was something I wasn't about to turn down. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You'll see. Trust me." Those two words, "trust me," landed heavy in my chest. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my son was finally trying to reconnect, not angle for something else. But the tone in his voice carried an edge I knew too well, the edge of someone scheming. I agreed anyway. An hour later, his beat-up Dodge pulled into my driveway. He looked sharp, slicked back hair, pressed shirt, too sharp for a casual night out. He grinned wide as I got in, the smell of cheap cologne filling the car. "Ready to have some fun, old man?" he said. I forced a chuckle. "Sure. Where to?" The neon glow on the horizon gave it away before he said a word. The spinning lights, the rhythmic flash against the night sky. It was unmistakable. A casino. But not just any casino. My casino. I didn't say a thing. I just let the knowledge settle in my gut like a secret weapon. He thought he was leading me into a trap, but the walls of that building belonged to me. Every table, every dealer, every card in the deck. And my son had no idea. The Dodge rolled off the highway and into a wash of neon that painted the windshield blue and hot pink. My son drummed the steering wheel with jittery fingers, a little too fast for the soft country song trickling from the speakers. He parked under a humming light where moths threw themselves into death with blind commitment. As we got out, a warm desert breeze lifted the smell of hot asphalt and fried food from the food trucks circling the edges of the lot. The sign above the entrance promised fortune in LEDs so bright they stung my eyes. He tossed me a grin. "You ready to win?" "I'm ready," I said, and the words tasted like a dare. The sliding doors opened with a sigh and the first kiss of air conditioning hit my face. Cold, dry, recycled. Inside, the casino breathed like a living thing. The carpet cushioned our steps with that familiar tacky pattern I had approved in a meeting 2 years ago to hide stains and lost chips. Slot machines chattered and sang, electronic bells overlapping with real laughter and the occasional low groan of defeat. Chips clicked like insects, a steady percussion that settled into my chest. I felt it all like a hum through bone. The lobby perfume was vanilla and citrus meant to keep folks awake, but beneath it was the truth. The metallic tang of coin trays, the ghost of cigarette smoke, the salt of human sweat. He walked ahead like he owned the place, and I trailed him like a tourist who'd never been here before. A host drifted toward us, black suit, white smile, his eyes catching mine for a split second with recognition. I gave the tiniest shake of my head. He pivoted smoothly, greeting an older couple instead. "Good man." Kyle angled toward the cashier. "You brought cash, right?" "A little." I patted my wallet like a prop in a high school play. He leaned in, speaking low, breath minty with something sharper beneath it. "ATM's over there. Let's make a night of it." I let the suggestion hang. His phone buzzed. He checked it quickly, the screen lighting his jaw. I caught a name, Mason, and a thumbs-up emoji. Then he turned the phone face down. That told me plenty. We started small. Kyle steered me to the roulette wheel first, the kind of colorful hypnosis civilians love. The dealer wore a red vest and the bored smile of a man who could recite everyone's bad beats in his sleep. I placed chips like a man who didn't mind losing them. Kyle coached from my shoulder. "Black, trust me." I obeyed, and we won. He squeezed my arm. "See? Tonight's the night." He wanted momentum. He wanted me greedy. The house, my house, understood that rhythm better than he did. I let him lead again, drifting to a blackjack table near the bar where the music was just loud enough to loosen judgment. The dealer was new, nervous hands, careful with the shuffle. Good. I wanted clean. Kyle played tight, then loose, shots landing on the rail like cavalry. "Loosen up, Dad. It's supposed to be fun." I sipped bourbon. It burned in the throat and warmed the stomach, but I stopped it too. He kept going. His laugh got brighter, his shoulders looser. When I lost a hand, he clucked his tongue and flagged the cocktail server with a two-finger wave, like he'd done it 1,000 times. She gave him a look that said she knew the exact weight of his charm, and found it light. Across the pit, I caught a familiar silhouette. Marcus, the night shift pit boss, a linebacker gone gray. He clocked me, then my son, and his eyebrows made a quiet question. I brushed 2 fingers along my tie knot. Keep distance. He nodded and glided away, pretending to study the shoe. Kyle's phone buzzed again. He checked it under the table lip, thinking he was slick. High limits open, he said casually, like he just remembered an old friend's birthday. You feel lucky? High limit meant quiet carpet, slower music, single malt breath, and the kind of cameras that saw the pulse in your neck. It also meant the dealers inside reported to me twice, once through policy and once through loyalty. I could feel the night bending toward whatever he planned. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with the ache of a father who suspected his boy was about to jump a fence with dogs on the other side. Lead the way, I said. We crossed the main floor. The slot aisle smelled like cherry syrup and desperation. A woman with a streak of silver in her hair slapped a button with the intensity of prayer. Somewhere a jackpot siren whooped, and cheers went up like fireworks. Kyle grinned like the sound was a sign. We passed velvet rope and a security guard I hired out of the Marines. His eyes brushed me with a flicker of recognition, then went glassy. Professional. Inside High Limit, the world turned softer, carpets thicker, voices low. The clink of chips sounded crisp, like good ice. A single baccarat table, 2 blackjack, 1 3-card poker, and a dealer in a navy vest I didn't know. Young, sharp jaw, green around the ears. That sent a ripple through me. New hires in High Limit cleared through Marcus. If I didn't know him, he was either very new or someone else's idea. Kyle's smile tightened at the sight of the dealer. Their eyes crossed for a fraction too long. A small nod. My palms cooled. Let's sit, Kyle said, pulling out a chair, the leather squeaking softly. I got a feeling. I sat. The dealer lifted the deck for a cut, and for the first time all night I let my eyes harden. The cards slid like whispering leaves. Kyle's knee jiggled under the table. Name? The dealer asked. Kyle, my son said, joker bright. He nudged me. And this is my dad. The dealer's smile didn't reach his eyes. Welcome, gentlemen. I rested my fingers on the felt. It was smooth, cool, familiar. My house. My rules. My son's trap. I felt the camera above us blink. Deal, I said. Let's see what luck looks like tonight. The first hand went fast. I played it like a rookie, hesitant, pretending I didn't know the math stitched into every turn of the card. Kyle leaned into me, whispering advice, pushing me to double down when the odds leaned bad. I lost, of course. He laughed like it was all part of the plan, slapped my back, ordered another round. But it wasn't about the drinks. It wasn't about luck. He was watching me, gauging how much I'd bleed before I walked away. That jiggling knee of his? It wasn't nerves. It was excitement. My son thought he had me cornered. The dealer, young and stiff in that navy vest, kept his face neutral, but his eyes told another story. He slid chips my way with a flourish, then stole a quick glance at Kyle. That glance was too long, too familiar. My boy had a partner. I took a sip of my bourbon, rolling the burn across my tongue. So how's work these days? I asked Kyle, loud enough to make the dealer pause for half a breath. Kyle's grin faltered. Work's fine, you know, same old grind. He tossed a bet on the table, bigger this time. Too big for his pockets. My chest tightened, but not for the money, for the lies. The dealer dealt again. Kyle played with reckless confidence, hitting when he should have stayed, doubling when the math screamed no. And yet, he won. Twice in a row. A third hand broke even. He flashed me that sly grin, the one I used to see when he was a kid sneaking cookies before dinner. Only this time it wasn't sweet. It was hungry. You see that? He whispered, sliding chips across to me like a teacher to a slow student. We're hot tonight. Don't hold back. I stared at the felt, let my fingers trace the soft fabric. If this was his game, He thought I'd play the fool, bleeding cash until the miracle streak collapsed. Then he'd nudge me toward the ATM, maybe even suggest a loan. He wanted me desperate enough to empty everything. But desperation, that belonged to him, not me. From the corner of my eye, I caught Marcus hovering near the baccarat table, pretending to monitor. His gaze flicked once to the dealer, then to me. My subtle nod told him to stay put, to let this ride. I needed to see how deep Kyle was willing to dig. The next hand came. Kyle bet high, I matched him, and the dealer dealt clean. Too clean. A soft ace sat in Kyle's hand, and the kid's lip twitched before the reveal. My son raised his glass, toasted me with a smirk. "You feel it, Dad?" "This is the start." I let the silence stretch, heavy between us. I wanted him to hear the weight in my voice when I finally answered. "Yeah, I feel it." Because what I felt wasn't luck. It was betrayal, humming low and steady in my chest like a bad drumbeat. My own son thought he could drag me under in my own house, and I was ready to let him try. The dealer shuffled again, hands too deliberate, eyes too careful. A new kid running a high-limit table would normally be sweating bullets under the cameras, but this one looked calm, too calm. He slid the deck toward me for the cut, and I could feel Kyle watching, waiting to see if I caught the trick. I cut sloppy, on purpose, like an amateur. Cards hit the felt. Kyle got a face card and an ace. Blackjack. He slapped the table and laughed loud enough to turn a few heads. "See? I told you. Tonight's our night." I smiled back, but my teeth pressed tight. A blackjack on the first hand of a fresh shoe was nothing unusual, but paired with that look between him and the dealer earlier, it stank of design. The house had more eyes than just the cameras, though. I glanced at Marcus across the room. He had seen it too. His jaw flexed once, like a man biting back a curse, but he stayed put. Kyle scooped up his winnings, stacked them like little towers, then leaned close. "All you gotta do is trust me. Don't be scared to push big. That's how they keep you broke in places like this. Fear. Places like this." He didn't even realize where he was standing. My floor, my dealers, my rules. I let him lead. He doubled his bet. The dealer dealt clean again. King, queen. Kyle split. His knee bounced under the table like a motor running too hot. First hand pulled a 9. Second hand, an ace. Wins both sides. His grin grew wolfish. "You see this? I told you, Dad. We're unstoppable tonight." The bourbon in my stomach turned sour. I wasn't watching a lucky streak. I was watching a rigged show. The dealer was feeding him soft wins, building his confidence, and by extension trying to pull me deeper. Kyle wasn't smart enough to engineer the shuffle, but he was smart enough to find someone who could. I sat back, arms crossed, letting the dealer slide me garbage hands. I lost 3 in a row. My stack shrank. Kyle leaned closer. "Don't worry about it. You'll get it back. Just keep betting. That's the rhythm." And I studied his face. He wasn't just playing, he was performing. The charm in his smile, the little clap of his hands when the chips moved, even the way he draped an arm across the back of my chair. It was theater. For me, for my wallet. "Feels good to win, huh?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Better than good." He flashed that boyish grin, the one that used to melt me when he was 10 years old begging for sneakers I couldn't afford. Now it just felt like a knife twisting. The dealer slid another hand. Kyle pushed heavy again. Another win. His stack had tripled. My losses mounted. And still I played dumb, like a man drunk on false hope. I caught Marcus shifting closer, his bulk cutting through the room like a shadow. I shook my head once. Slow. Not yet. I needed the picture to be clearer. Kyle turned to me, his eyes bright with the fever of it. "You see? We can take this place for everything it's got." I sipped my drink, swallowing fire, and forced a thin smile. "Yeah, son, everything it's got." But the thing he didn't know, the thing that kept my heart steady while his burned fast, was that this place was mine. Every chip on that table, every camera in the ceiling, every paycheck signed at the end of the week. And before the night was over, he was going to learn exactly whose game he was playing. The longer we sat, the clearer the picture became. Kyle wasn't gambling, he was running a script. He bet high, lost small, won big. Every loss looked like a calculated sacrifice. Every win too clean. The dealer's rhythm matched his like they were dancing together. I'd seen 1,000 hustlers try to outsmart casinos, but seeing my son in the middle of one? That cut deeper than any con. Kyle leaned back in his chair, flashing that half-cocky grin he must have practiced in the mirror. He raised his glass, bourbon sloshing against the rim. "You know, Dad, I always told you I'd find a way to beat the system. Guess tonight's the proof." "Is that so?" I asked, playing dumb. "Systems are made by people. People can be cracked. It's just about knowing where to push." His eyes flicked toward the dealer for half a second too long. That was his tell. He didn't even realize it. I kept my gaze on the felt, voice flat. "And you're pushing where tonight?" Kyle chuckled, threw a stack of chips forward like it was nothing. "Right here, with you. Father and son, making history." I let the silence stretch, the weight of his words hanging between us. Father and son. To him this was bonding, a crooked form of it, but bonding all the same. He thought bleeding me dry in a casino, his casino, was a team effort. Another hand slid across the felt. I didn't look at the cards. Instead, I watched Kyle's knee bouncing fast, jittering under the table like it was plugged into a wall socket. Nerves, excitement, addiction. It told me more than his smile ever could. He won again. His stack had grown monstrous, a tower of chips so tall the dealer had to pause to push it straight. Kyle clapped once, too loud, drawing attention from a man in a tailored suit at the baccarat table. Eyes turned. Kyle loved it. He thrived on it. I, on the other hand, hated it. The louder he got, the more dangerous this became. Attention in a casino is like blood in the water. Security swarms. And if my son was dumb enough to think he could steal from this house, then sooner or later, I'd have to decide whether to stop him as a father or as the owner. Kyle leaned close, his breath warm with liquor. "Here's what I'm thinking. We build the pot, then walk out. Simple. Quick." I stared at him, my voice low. "And what if the house doesn't let us walk?" He smirked. "They won't even notice. Not if we're smart." The arrogance in his tone made my stomach twist. He really believed he was pulling off something clever. He really believed he was in control. Another hand came. He doubled, then split. Wins again. He slapped the table, laughing, eyes sparkling with the fever of it. "Unstoppable. You feel it, don't you, Dad?" I studied him, and for the first time that night, I didn't see the boy I raised. I saw a stranger who thought he could con me blind. But there was one thing Kyle had forgotten, something he couldn't possibly know. The house always knows when it's being played. And tonight, the house was me. The pit boss moved in slow, casual circles, but I could feel Marcus's eyes cutting over from across the room. He didn't need to say a word. He knew. I knew. Everyone who mattered in this building knew when a table went sideways. But the rest of the floor? They were blind to it. Slot machines screamed. Couples stumbled from the bar with their arms wrapped too tight around each other. Dealers in sequined uniforms pushed chips like lifeguards keeping swimmers afloat. The casino never stopped breathing, never stopped pulling people in with the promise of a miracle. Kyle leaned back in his chair, basking in his little streak, oblivious to the sharks circling under the surface. His grin had turned into a full performance now, slapping my shoulder, raising his glass, laughing louder than the room required. He was trying to make the win look natural, like he wasn't orchestrating it, but it was too perfect. The kind of run that makes regulars whisper and security watch twice. "Dad," he said, leaning close, "you've got to ride this wave with me. I'm telling you, it's once in a lifetime." I swirled the bourbon in my glass, the cubes clinking like small bells. "Once in a lifetime usually means someone's cheating fate." He laughed it off, a little too quickly. "Come on, don't get all paranoid. This is just luck. For once, things are breaking my way." The dealer's hands trembled just enough to catch my eye. Not fear. Anticipation. That boy wasn't seasoned. He wasn't built to carry a con this heavy. He dealt another hand, careful as a surgeon. Kyle scooped it up. Another win. Marcus shifted again, close enough now that I could smell his cologne cutting through the room's artificial citrus. His face was stone, but his eyes locked on mine, waiting for a signal. One nod from me and the game would end. Kyle would be pulled into a back office, asked questions he couldn't answer, and his night would collapse before he knew it started. But I didn't nod. Not yet. I needed him to hang himself with the rope he'd brought. Kyle's phone buzzed under the table. He checked it quick, thinking he was slick, and I caught the glow of the screen. A text from Mason again. Just 2 words. How much? My jaw tightened. Mason wasn't just some buddy cheering him on. No, this was deeper. Kyle had a backer. Someone was waiting on him to deliver. He pocketed the phone, smiled at me like nothing was wrong, and stacked another tower of chips. We're killing it, Dad. We could walk out right now, pockets heavy. What do you say? I leaned in, meeting his eager eyes with calm steel. I say you've never known when to quit. For half a heartbeat his smile faltered. He covered it quick, throwing an arm over my shoulder like we were just 2 guys having the time of our lives. But I'd seen it. The crack. The mask slipping. Above us, the camera blinked. To anyone else, it was just a piece of glass in the ceiling. To me, it was a reminder. Everything here belonged to me, and I had a record of every move he made. Kyle thought he was playing a game, but the truth was, the game had already been watching him from the moment he walked in the door. And soon, I was going to show him. Kyle shoved another stack forward, bigger this time. The dealer's eyes flicked up at me for a fraction of a second, then back down. That was all it took. Confirmation. My son wasn't just lucky. He was complicit. The chips clinked against the felt, the sound sharp in the hush of the high-limit room. Kyle's grin stretched wider, his knee bouncing under the table like a jackhammer. He was riding high, drunk on the idea that fortune had finally bent his way. "Don't look so tense, Dad," he said, voice loud enough for the baccarat players nearby to glance over. "This is what winning feels like. You've just forgotten." I let a thin smile curve my lips. Maybe, but inside, my pulse was steady, deliberate. Every tick of the second hand on my watch was a reminder. I wasn't the one gambling here. He was. The dealer dealt again. Kyle drew a king and a 9. A perfect 20. He leaned back, folding his arms like a man watching destiny unfold. The house card flipped a weak hand, a bust. Chips flowed across the table to Kyle's stack. He whooped, slapping the felt with his palm. "See? We can't lose tonight." Marcus drifted closer, his shadow swallowing the edge of the table. His stance was calm, but his eyes told me he was 1 second away from stepping in. I gave him the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." Kyle flagged the cocktail server with a snap of his fingers. "Another round? Top shelf this time. We're celebrating." His voice carried, pulling attention again. He thrived on it, soaking in the stares like fuel. The waitress shot me a quick look as she walked off, a silent question. I gave her nothing. Kyle leaned toward me, his voice low now, conspiratorial. "We could clear 100 grand tonight, easy. You realize that, right? That's real money. Money that changes things." I studied him, the sweat glistening at his hairline, the hunger in his eyes. "Changes what?" He blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Everything. Debt's gone, new start, freedom." There it was, the crack wide open. He wasn't here for me. He wasn't even here for himself. He was here because someone else was holding the leash. Mason. Debts. Pressure. My son wasn't running this play because he wanted to. He was running it because he had no choice. I let my hand rest on the felt, fingers drumming slow. "And what happens if the house notices?" Kyle chuckled, but his laugh was thin, hollow. "They won't. Nobody ever notices." The dealer dealt again. Kyle won. Again. His stack now towered so high the dealer had to split it into neat piles. My stomach turned, not from the money but from the man my boy was becoming right in front of me. The cameras watched. Marcus watched. The floor staff whispered. Everyone knew something was off. And sooner or later, someone would step in if I didn't. Kyle turned, eyes wild with adrenaline. "You with me or not, Dad? Because we're only getting started." I raised my glass, let the bourbon burn my throat, and locked eyes with him. "I'm with you, son," I said. But what I didn't say was this. I was with him all the way to the fall. Kyle's hands shook now, but not from nerves. It was the high. The adrenaline that only comes when you think you've beaten the world. He stacked his chips in tall, uneven towers, his grin flickering like a neon sign about to burn out. The waitress returned with his drink. He tipped her sloppily, already distracted by the next hand. She walked away, her eyes darting once toward Marcus. Everyone on the floor felt it now. The unnatural streak, the pull of something crooked at our table. Kyle's phone buzzed again. He snatched it up, shielding the screen with his palm. I caught just enough of the glow to see the name. Mason. His thumbs moved fast. Then, as if nothing happened, he shoved the phone into his pocket and raised his glass. "Here's to beating the system," he said, his voice slurred with bravado. I clinked my glass against his, though my hand was steady. "And here's to paying the bill when the system bites back." He laughed too hard, almost spilling his drink. "Come on, Dad, don't be so grim. This is it. This is our night." No, this was his night, but for all the wrong reasons. Mason wasn't just a cheerleader waiting for news. Mason was the debt collector. My son was gambling with my money to pay another man. That truth settled in my gut like a stone. The dealer slid another hand. Kyle's eyes gleamed. He doubled again, reckless, greedy. He won. His stack swelled, until the felt in front of him looked like a small fortress. He leaned back, stretching, basking in the glow of victory. "Think about it, Dad," he said, lowering his voice now. "You and me, we walk out of here with a fortune. We split it, start fresh. No more scraping by, no more stress." My jaw tightened. He thought I was broke. He thought I was just another Mark with a wallet to bleed. He had no idea that every paycheck in this building, every light bulb above our heads, every security guard waiting in the shadows, all of it came from me. "Fresh start," I repeated, letting the words hang heavy. He nodded eagerly. "Exactly. I know I've screwed up before, but this is me making it right." I stared at him, at the desperation in his grin, the sweat running down his temple, the trembling hand clutching his drink. He wasn't making it right. He was making it worse. He was digging himself into a hole so deep he thought a stack of stolen chips could fill it. The dealer dealt again. Another win. Too perfect. Marcus took a step closer. His voice a low rumble meant only for me. "Boss?" I gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." Kyle didn't notice. He was too busy texting Mason under the table, his face glowing in the screen's light like a gambler praying to a false god. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and folded my hands on the felt. My son thought he was playing against the house. What he didn't know was that the house was his father, and the house never loses. The chips in front of Kyle had grown into a mountain. Green, black, even purple stacks so tall, the dealer had split them into careful rows. To anyone else, he looked like the luckiest man alive. To me, he looked like a man standing on a cliff edge, cheering while the ground crumbled beneath his feet. The room had changed. At first no one noticed us, just another father and son at a blackjack table. But now, with each cheer, each too-perfect win, the quiet murmur of high-limit regulars had shifted into sharp whispers. Eyes tracked us. Dealers at neighboring tables slowed their hands. Even the cocktail server lingered when she dropped drinks, watching Kyle with thinly veiled suspicion. I felt the weight of the cameras above. Not just mine, but corporates. They monitored anomalies, flagged streaks, cross-checked betting patterns against dealer performance. Somewhere in a quiet control room, a team of analysts was staring at this very table waiting for the order to freeze it. "Unbelievable," Kyle muttered, stacking another pile. His grin split his face, manic, jittery. His knee bounced under the table so hard it shook the chip stacks. He turned to me, eyes wild. "This is it, Dad. We can bleed this place dry. You just gotta go bigger." "Bigger?" I asked calmly. "Yeah, push everything. Don't think, just ride the wave." I leaned back, letting my chair creak. "And then what? We cash out, walk through the front doors, and the house just thanks us for playing?" His grin faltered for a second, but he masked it quick, flashing that charm he used on teachers, bosses, girlfriends. "Don't worry about that. I've got it covered." I wanted to slam my fist down, shake sense into him, demand to know how deep Mason's claws were in his back, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I played the fool, sliding chips forward like a man caught in the fever of a streak. The dealer dealt. Kyle won again. My hand lost, another slow bleed. The chips slid away from me, toward him. He grinned, too busy texting under the table to notice the shadow moving behind him. Marcus. He was close now, his massive frame swallowing the glow of the table lights. His jaw was set, his hands clasped behind him like a soldier waiting for an order. The rest of the staff pretended not to notice, but I saw the tension ripple through the room. They knew. I gave the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. Kyle's phone buzzed again. He snatched it up, shielding the screen like a teenager hiding a dirty magazine. His eyes darted as he read the message, lips pressing into a thin line. He typed fast, shoved the phone back into his pocket, then forced his grin back into place. "Everything good?" I asked. "Perfect," he said, his voice too tight. He pushed forward another heavy stack, sweat dripping from his temple now. The dealer dealt. Kyle hit 21. Again. The whispers around us sharpened. A man in a tailored suit at the baccarat table leaned back, crossing his arms, watching with open suspicion. A woman at the bar froze mid-sip, eyes fixed on Kyle like she was watching a train wreck. And still, my son celebrated, oblivious to the eyes, to the cameras, to the noose tightening around his neck. "Dad, we're untouchable," he said, voice breaking with excitement. "This is history. Nobody's ever run a streak like this." I set my empty glass down, the sound sharp against the felt. My voice came low, steady, final. "History always ends the same way, son. Someone falls." For the first time all night, his smile cracked. His knee stopped bouncing. His hand froze on the chips. He stared at me, searching my face like he'd just heard something he wasn't supposed to. And in that silence, with the room watching, the cameras recording, and Marcus looming like a storm, I knew the boil point had finally come. The next move wouldn't just change the game. It would change everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand. I just scratched my jaw. A tiny motion only Marcus would read. In his world, that meant pause the dance, change the music. He stepped to the dealer's shoulder, voice polite and neutral. "Table check." The room inhaled. Regulars knew the phrase. It wasn't an accusation, it was a reset. New shoe, fresh deck, count the chips, verify the pitch sheets. Normal, until it wasn't. Kyle laughed, too big, trying to blow past it. "What's this? Momentum killer." "Standard procedure," I said, calm as stone. "Happens when a run hits a certain number." He shot me a look, searching for outrage or fear. I gave him none. His grin flickered, then glued itself back on. "No problem. We're still hot when they shuffle again." Marcus signaled the floor. The music seemed to drop a beat as two attendants arrived with a sealed shoe and a clear tray. The dealer's fingers weren't so steady now. He broke down the chip stacks into neat denominations, while another attendant verified, lips moving in a quick count. The cocktail server froze halfway to our table, then eased away like a tide pulling back from shore. Overhead, the camera lens winked. I could almost hear the surveillance room murmuring, "Flag, freeze, compare." I'd sat in that dark room 100 times, watching patterns turn into problems. Tonight, the problem wore my last name. "Man, this is killing the vibe," Kyle said, rolling his shoulders as if to shake it off. "Let's just cash out and celebrate. We can come back in an hour." I watched him carefully. That suggestion wasn't about vibe. It was about extraction. Get the chips off the felt. Get them to the cage. Get out the door. He thought the window was closing. "Soon," I said. Marcus coughed, soft. "A question." I nodded once. "Sir," Marcus said to Kyle, all courtesy, "per policy, we'll need to issue you a new player's card for payout at that level. It'll only take a minute." Kyle blinked. "I've got a card." "For wins above 50, Marcus said, still velvet smooth. "We verify identity and file the CTR. It protects you." His eyes didn't leave my son's face. "And us." The word CTR landed like a hammer. Currency transaction report. Government eyes. Names tied to numbers. Useful when you want to know who's behind a stack. Kyle swallowed. He forced a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. Sure. Whatever makes you happy. The dealer sliced open the new shoe. The scent of ink and cardboard rose, crisp and dry. He offered me the cut. I took the cards, felt the weight, the coolness, the slight tack of high-quality finish. Instead of a sloppy cut, I set the blade deep, where a cheater's prearrangement would die. The kid's throat bobbed. We played 3 hands at a trickle, small bets that meant nothing. Kyle pushed, hungry, but Marcus hovered, and the dealer's magic evaporated. He lost 2, won 1, chafed like a dog at a leash. Let's go cash out, he said again, impatience sharpening the edges of his words. We've got enough, more than enough. Bathroom, I said, pushing back my chair. I'm not walking to a cage with bourbon in my kidneys. He sighed, but stood. His chip racks clacked as he gathered them. I let him carry every last one. The weight would itch his palms. The promise would sweat in his grip. Marcus fell in step behind us, just far enough to be air. We moved through the muted hall that led away from High Limit. Thicker carpet, framed photos of local celebrities with their staged smiles, the chilled hush of money. I could feel Kyle looking at me in profile, measuring, guessing. You're calm, he said. So are you, I said. He forced a smirk. Winner's calm. We passed the restroom entrance. I didn't turn in. I kept walking, to a door with a gold plaque that said guest services in bland, friendly letters. I pushed it open. The room beyond was soft light and quiet leather chairs, a place for whales to breathe. A concierge desk sat empty. The attendant had been called away, by me, 2 minutes ago. Kyle hesitated. This isn't the cage. It's faster, I said. And private. He stepped in. The door hushed closed behind us, and the casino noise dropped to a heartbeat. The walls smelled faintly of cedar polish and citrus. I could hear the hum of the HVAC, the distant thrum of slot banks like surf behind glass. I turned to him. Who's Mason? His face did a twitch I might have missed if I hadn't been waiting for it. Friend. Collector, I said. Silence lengthened. He set the chip racks on a low table, fingers still on the plastic edges like he might yank them back and run. I'm taking care of it, he said. Tonight takes care of it. At my expense, I said. He bristled. At the house's expense. I let that sit. Then I watched understanding chase confusion across his face as my words stayed still, and my eyes did not. He searched me, the room, the invisible weight pressing down. What? He said, a whisper now. What are you saying? The door opened with a soft click. Marcus stepped in, shut it, planted himself by the frame like a granite bookend. He didn't look at me. He looked at my son. Kyle, I said, voice low, steady. This house is mine. He stared. He looked at the racks of chips. He looked at Marcus. He looked at me again, as if a different angle would turn the truth into a joke. No, he said, a breathless bark. No way. What, you own a piece? All of it, I said. The cameras? The tables? The shoes? The cage you wanted to slip through? I took a step closer. And the bill you were about to hand me without knowing. His mouth opened, then closed. The bravado drained out of him like someone pulled a plug. For a moment I saw the kid who'd skinned his knee on a cheap skateboard and pretended not to cry. I saw the boy who used to fall asleep on my chest during Sunday football. Then I saw the man who brought a dealer into my house to steal from me. He swallowed hard. I didn't know. I know, I said. That's the worst part. Marcus's radio crackled softly. Surveillance checking in, ready to move. I held up a hand without looking. Not yet. I faced my son. We can walk to the cage right now, file your name on every dollar and let the night end the way it should for a cheat. Or, he lifted his eyes, raw, trapped. You can tell me how deep Mason runs and give me the dealer's full name. Right here, right now. And I'll decide how much of you I can still protect. The chips sat between us, silent and heavy. He looked at them like they were a lifeboat that had just turned to stone. His breathing quickened. Dad? I'm listening, I said. Kyle's mouth opened and shut like a fish dragged out of water. His eyes darted between me, Marcus, and the racks of chips. The cocky grin he'd worn all night was gone, replaced by a tightness in his jaw, a tremble in his voice. "You don't understand," he said, the words thin. "Mason? He's not the kind of guy you just walk away from." I folded my arms, steady. "Then you shouldn't have walked me into his mess." He flinched, the guilt hitting him harder than any punch. "I wasn't going to let him touch you. I just thought if I—" He glanced at the chips again, desperate. "If I hit it big, I could cover it. You'd never even know." Marcus snorted, low and sharp, the sound of a man who'd seen too many excuses. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed on my son. "How much?" I asked. Kyle's shoulders sagged. He rubbed his face with both hands, smearing sweat across his forehead. 75,000? He nodded. His eyes were glassy, the weight of the number dragging his spine down. I exhaled slow. 75 grand wasn't a life-ending debt in this world, but it was big enough to ruin him if he owed it to the wrong man. Mason. I knew the type. Street collector with just enough polish to pass as legitimate. Just enough muscle behind him to make fear the real payment. "Name of the dealer," I said flatly. Kyle hesitated, chewing the inside of his cheek. His hands hovered over the chip racks like he wanted to scoop them up and run. He glanced at Marcus, then at me. His eyes softened, just for a second, like the boy I'd raised was still somewhere in there. "Ethan," he said finally, his voice breaking. "He's a friend. He owed Mason, too. Said this was our way out. He set the shoe. He broke off, swallowing hard. "I didn't think it through." "No," I said, my voice iron. "You didn't." The silence pressed heavy. The hum of the air vents, the faint throb of bass from the casino floor, even the creak of Marcus shifting his weight, they all filled the space where Kyle's excuses died. "You think I wanted this?" Kyle said suddenly, his voice rising. "You think I like being the screw-up? You've had everything figured out your whole life. Career, money, reputation. Me? I've been drowning, and Mason was the only one who threw me a rope." I stepped closer, my shadow falling across the chips. "That wasn't a rope, son. That was a noose." His lip quivered, but he clenched his jaw, forcing the emotion down. He wasn't going to cry. Not here, not in front of Marcus, but I could see the crack in him widening, the truth spilling out whether he wanted it to or not. "You want to make this right?" I asked. Kyle nodded slowly, like a man walking to his own sentencing. "Then you'll do exactly as I say. No more lies. No more running Mason's errands. You'll cut Ethan loose. You'll face the cameras with me, and you'll watch how a man fixes what he broke." For the first time that night, he didn't argue. He just lowered his eyes to the racks of chips and whispered, "Okay." Marcus shifted by the door, his arms folded like a mountain. His voice was gravel when he spoke. "Boss, surveillance is waiting on your call. Want me to bring them in?" I shook my head. "Not yet, because punishing Kyle here in this room would be easy. Too easy." What he needed wasn't just correction. He needed to see the full weight of the house, and I was about to show him. I told Marcus to stay by the door while I gathered the racks myself. The weight of the chips pressed into my palms, cold, heavy, final. Kyle watched me, his hands twitching like he wanted to snatch them back but knew better. "Follow me," I said. His voice cracked. "Where are we going?" "To make this real." The hallway outside was quiet, carpet muffling every step. Kyle's sneakers squeaked against the floor, betraying his nerves. He stayed half a step behind me, like a boy trailing his father through a crowd. Only now the crowd was judgment, and the stage was mine. We moved past framed photos of celebrities shaking hands with dealers, holding oversized checks, smiling like they'd conquered the world. None of them knew the truth, that the house always kept its pound of flesh. Kyle stared at the photos too long, and I wondered if he saw himself up there in some twisted dream. We reached the cage. The lights were brighter here, harsh, sterile. The counters gleamed with bulletproof glass, and behind it, cashiers in black vests shuffled bills with machine precision. The scent of money filled the air, ink, paper, sweat. The floor staff noticed us. Word had spread. Their eyes lingered on Kyle, then on me, then on the racks of chips. They didn't speak, but their silence carried judgment heavier than any words. I placed the racks on the counter. Cash out. The cashier, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes sharp enough to cut glass, nodded once. She began counting, her fingers moving fast, neat, exact. The bills stacked higher and higher, the sound crisp, unforgiving. Kyle shifted on his feet. "Dad, we don't have to—" "Quiet." My voice cut him like a blade. The count finished. 75,000. Neat bundles bound with paper bands, laid out like a body on display. The cashier's eyes flicked from me to Kyle, waiting. "This goes into an account," I said, steady. "Under his name." Kyle's head snapped toward me. "What? No, I can't. Mason. Mason doesn't own you," I said. "Not anymore. He's going to get his money, and you're going to hand it to him yourself. Clean. Traceable. No more games." His face paled, sweat beating at his temple. "You don't understand. If Mason sees it came from, he'll know exactly where it came from," I interrupted, my voice iron. "The house, which means he'll know it came through me. And Mason doesn't want a war with me." The words landed hard. Kyle swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing like he was trying to force down the truth. He glanced at Marcus, who hadn't moved from his shadowed post, then back at me. "You're serious," he whispered. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Son, I've never been more serious in my life." The cashier slid the bundles into a black case, locking it with a sharp snap. She pushed it across the counter to me. I didn't touch it. I pushed it toward Kyle instead. His hands hovered over the case, trembling. When he finally gripped the handle, the weight dragged his arm down. He clutched it to his chest like it might vanish if he let go. "This is your debt," I said, "and your lesson. You'll walk it out of here, and you'll face Mason with me standing behind you. He'll get his money. But you'll remember what it cost you to even try this." Kyle's eyes glistened, but he nodded. He wasn't grinning now. He wasn't cocky. He was stripped bare. Just a man caught in the storm of his own mistakes. Marcus opened the door. The noise of the casino floor spilled in. Laughter, cheers, the shrill cry of a jackpot siren. Life went on outside, oblivious. "Let's go," I said. Kyle stepped forward, clutching the case. The walk had begun. The walk of consequence, and I was right behind him. We left the bright chaos of the floor behind, moving through the casino's private corridors. These weren't the paths for gamblers. These were for business. The walls were bare, painted in muted cream, the lighting low. You could feel the difference here. Out there, it was a circus. Back here, it was all about control. Kyle clutched the black case so tight his knuckles went white. He walked stiff, shoulders hunched, like a man carrying his own coffin. I stayed half a step behind him, calm, steady. Marcus trailed, silent as stone. At the service entrance, a guard waited. He recognized me, stepped aside without a word. The heavy door opened with a metallic groan, and cool night air rushed in. The parking lot stretched wide, neon glow bouncing off the hood of a black Escalade idling under a flickering lamp. Mason. The man himself stepped out before we reached him. Tall, tailored, the kind of suit that looked like it could buy 3 months' rent. His hair was slick, his jaw tight, and his smile, thin, sharp, predatory. 2 men flanked him, bulked up, scanning the shadows like dogs waiting to be unleashed. "Kyle," Mason said, voice smooth as glass. "You took your time." Kyle froze, case clutched to his chest. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Mason's eyes slid past him, locking on me. For a heartbeat, the smooth smile faltered. He didn't know me well, but he knew enough. Everyone in this town who dealt with risk knew the name behind this casino. "Well," Mason said slowly, recalibrating, "this is unexpected." I stepped forward, calm but deliberate, my shoes crunching on the gravel. "Unexpected is showing up in my house and using my son as a pawn." Mason raised his brows, feigning innocence. "Your house? I was told this was just business." "Then you were told wrong," I said. "And business doesn't run through my son." "Not ever." Silence stretched. The guards shifted their weight, waiting for a signal. Mason studied me, then the case in Kyle's hands. 75? He asked. Kyle nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. Every cent. Mason's smile returned, but softer now. Measured. Debt cleared then. Simple enough. He reached a hand toward the case, but I didn't let Kyle move. I placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. He gives it to you, but you understand something first. This is the last time. If he touches a table in this city for anything but entertainment, if he so much as whispers your name in my shadow, you and I will have a different kind of meeting. Mason's eyes hardened. His smile thinned again. That sounds like a threat. It's not, I said evenly. It's a guarantee. The air between us tightened. His men straightened, but Mason lifted a hand, stopping them. He looked at me long and hard, then let out a soft chuckle. I see where your boy gets his fire. Kyle swallowed hard, shifting the case. He held it out, his hands trembling, and Mason took it. The weight seemed to please him, but his eyes never left mine. Debt's clear, Mason said at last. For now. I stepped closer, closing the gap until my voice dropped to a growl only he could hear. Not for now. For good. Kyle is finished with you. Find another fool. He stared at me, lips tight, but said nothing. After a moment he tapped the case, turned back to his Escalade, and slid inside. His men followed. The engine rumbled to life, and within seconds the SUV melted back into the night. Kyle stood frozen, chest heaving, empty hands hanging at his sides. He looked smaller without the case, like the weight leaving his arms had only doubled in his chest. "Dad," he started, voice hoarse. I didn't let him finish. "We're not done, not by a long shot, because tonight wasn't just about Mason. Tonight was about my son, and whether he could climb out of the hole he'd dug, or whether he'd drag himself down deeper." The Escalade's taillights disappeared into the dark, and the night fell heavy around us. The parking lot was quiet again, just the hum of neon and the buzz of a tired street lamp. Kyle stood there empty-handed, his shoulders sagging, his face pale. "Dad," his voice cracked. I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of what just happened sit on his chest. He needed to feel it. Not just the relief of Mason driving away, but the shame of what it had taken to get here. "You brought me into this," I said finally, my tone even, sharp. "You walked me into my own casino thinking you could bleed me dry. Worse, you didn't even know it was mine. You thought I was just another mark." His head dropped, eyes fixed on the asphalt. I wasn't thinking straight. Mason had me cornered. I didn't know what else to do. I stepped closer, my voice low but hard. "You always have a choice. Always. But you chose the easy way, the dirty way, and you dragged me into it without a second thought." He winced like the words were blows. His hands fidgeted, fingers twitching at nothing. He looked young again. Not 30, not a man, just a scared boy. "I was desperate," he whispered. "I didn't want to come to you for help. I didn't want you to see me like that." I let out a bitter laugh. "And instead, you let me see you like this." He flinched. Marcus shifted behind us, his presence steady, solid. I caught his eyes and gave a small nod. He understood. This wasn't his moment to step in. This was mine. I took a breath, steadying the fire in my chest. "Here are the terms, Kyle. From this night forward, you're done with hustles. No more cons, no more shortcuts. You work, real work. You pay your own way." He looked up, eyes wide, desperate. "And if I don't?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Then I cut you off, for good. No second chances. You'll be a stranger to me." The words hung between us like a blade. His lips parted, but no sound came. He knew I meant it. I stepped even closer, my voice softer now, but iron all the same. "You're my son. I love you. But love doesn't mean I'll let you drag me into your messes. It means I'll draw the line so you know where the bottom is. And tonight, you hit it." His breath hitched. For a moment I thought he might crumble right there in the lot, but instead he wiped his face roughly, squared his shoulders, and nodded once. "Okay, I'll do it. Not for me," I said. "For you, because I won't carry you anymore." The wind picked up, hot desert air carrying the faint scent of asphalt and fried food from the food trucks down the block. The sounds of the casino, Bells, laughter, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Life went on. Kyle stood still, silent, a man at a crossroads. "Marcus," I said finally, turning to the big man, "get him home. Tomorrow he comes to me sober. We'll talk about his next step." Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir." Kyle looked at me, his eyes raw, stripped of bravado. "Dad, thank you." I didn't answer. I just turned back toward the glowing entrance of my casino, the place where he had tried to take everything, and where I had given him one last chance instead. Because sometimes the hardest bet a father can make isn't on the table. It's on his own son. The sun was climbing when Kyle walked into my office the next morning. He looked rough, eyes bloodshot, jaw unshaven, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. But for the first time in years, there was no swagger in his stride, no performance, just a man stripped to the core, carrying his shame like a weight on his back. He stood in the doorway, hesitating. "You wanted to see me." I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking. The smell of strong coffee filled the room, mingling with the faint tang of paper and ink from the reports spread across my desk. I studied him for a long moment, letting him squirm. "Sit," I said. He dropped into the chair across from me, his hands clasped tight in his lap. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Last night," I began, my voice even, "you put me in a position no father should ever face. You tried to steal from me. Worse, you didn't even realize you were in my house. Do you understand how deep that cut runs?" His voice was hoarse. "I do." I leaned forward, my elbows on the desk. "I gave you terms. No more cons, no more debts. You work. You stand on your own. I meant every word. But this—" I gestured to the casino floor, visible through the tinted window behind me. The faint glow of neon seeped in, even in daylight. "This place doesn't forgive easily. People saw you win. People saw you walk out with Mason. There are whispers already. You don't just walk away from something like that clean." He swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" I let the silence hang. The clock on the wall ticked, each second heavier than the last. Finally I spoke. "You work for me." His head snapped up, eyes wide. "What?" "You heard me. You're going to learn this business from the ground up. Not as my son, don't expect favors. You'll start where every rookie starts. Nights, floors, backroom numbers. You'll see what it takes to keep this place breathing. And you'll earn every cent you touch." Shock flickered across his face, then confusion, then something else. Fear. "You're serious?" "Deadly," I said. "You wanted to beat the system. Now you're going to learn how it works, one chipped nail at a time. You want redemption? This is it." He sat back, running both hands through his messy hair. "I don't know if I can." I leaned in, my voice iron. "You will. Because if you don't, Mason won't be the one you have to answer to. I will. And you know me well enough to know I don't bluff." His breath came fast, shallow. He pressed his hands against his knees like he was grounding himself. After a long moment he nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." I studied him, searching for the smirk, the bravado, the old tricks. They weren't there. For the first time I saw something real. Not confidence, not swagger. Just a man staring at the hardest climb of his life. "Good," I said, sitting back. "You start tonight. Marcus will set you up." Kyle stood slowly, shoulders still slumped, but there was a spark in his eyes now, a flicker of something I hadn't seen in years. Not greed, not defiance, determination. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. His voice came quiet, almost broken. "Dad, I won't let you down again." I didn't answer right away. I let him walk out, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. Because I knew words were cheap, promises were cheaper. The only thing that mattered now was whether my son could finally pay his own way. That night, the casino glowed brighter than ever. Friday crowds poured in. Laughter, clinking glasses, the steady drone of slot machines spinning hope into dust. From my office above the floor, I watched it all through tinted glass. The view never got old. Every dollar moving across that carpet was part of a machine I had built, piece by piece. And now, my son was part of it too. Kyle stood at a blackjack table, not as a player, but as staff. A floor runner dressed in a crisp vest and tie Marcus had dug out of the wardrobe department. His job tonight was simple. Move chips, carry slips, keep an eye out. Nothing glamorous, nothing easy, but necessary. I watched him carefully. No swagger, no grins. He kept his head down, his movements sharp but respectful. When a guest snapped fingers for service, he didn't flinch. When a dealer flagged him over for a chip transfer, he handled it smooth. I could see the strain in his shoulders, but I could also see the fire, the determination to stand where he'd almost drowned. Marcus stepped into my office without knocking, a mountain in a suit. "He's holding up," he said, eyes still on the floor. "For now," I muttered. "He'll make it," Marcus said simply, as if the matter was already decided. I didn't answer. Instead, I let my eyes track Kyle as he moved between tables, earning his place inch by inch. Hours passed. Midnight hit. The floor thinned, the air thick with the scent of smoke, spilled liquor, and desperation. Kyle returned to the high-limit area, the same ground where he'd nearly burned me the night before. Only now he wasn't at the table. He was behind it, shadowing a dealer, watching every move. His eyes narrowed, focused, learning. I stepped out of the office and walked the floor, the sound of my shoes blending with the hum of the casino. When I reached him, he straightened instantly, tension in his jaw. "Mr. Harris," the dealer greeted me, her voice polite but edged with nerves. "Carry on," I said, then looked at Kyle. "Walk with me." We moved to a quiet corner near the bar, away from the tables. The neon lights bathed his face in shifting colors, red, blue, green. He looked tired, worn, but alive. "You did good tonight," I said. He blinked, surprised. Thanks. This is the bet I've made on you," I continued. "Not the tables, not Mason. You. You want to be a man? Then stand in this house, learn how it breathes, and carry your weight. You do that, and maybe, just maybe, you'll win something real." His throat worked as he swallowed. "And if I don't?" I met his eyes, steady. "Then you'll lose the only thing worth more than money. Me." For a moment he looked like he might break. But instead, he squared his shoulders and nodded. "I won't lose you, Dad." I studied him, searching for the old grin, the sly charm. It wasn't there. What I saw instead was raw determination. The kind a man finds only when he's backed into a corner and decides to fight his way out. "Then prove it," I said, turning back toward the floor. "Every night, every shift, one step at a time." He followed me, his pace steady, no longer dragging. For the first time in years, I believed he might just make it. The casino lights shimmered around us, a sea of noise and color. But for me, the real win wasn't on the tables. It was standing beside me, finally learning that the only bet worth making is the one you fight to keep. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd already won. The end.